the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. First and foremost, our mission is to be able to shape a vibrant and equitable digital future, fostering forward-looking insights and creative solutions to create an advancement in the digital ecosystems of the country. As you have known, we have seen the digital landscape changing throughout, and we have seen a rapid transition in technology at various moments. If you begin dating back, where was Uganda 10 years ago, and where is Uganda right now? So we are seeing a change in all this. So out of all this, we have basically the pillars that govern us. Is we have to follow the various industrial value chains, which include developing, making, selling, and using technologies that have been manufactured right here in Uganda. So the very first things that we're looking at, mechanization of technology, and how can we be able to mass produce using the various digital channels that exist here in the country, and then how can we be able to sustain our production system such that we can be able to serve our country. And in the thirdly, we have to look at the computers and automation systems. So how are we picking up, how are we scaling with all these respective innovations? And lastly, in the fourth part of the industrial value chain, we are looking at cyber physical systems and networks. As you know, we've heard of NITA building the NBI backbone cable, and it is serving Ugandans from all corners of the country, mainly supporting the ministries, development agencies, and so forth. But when the new STI comes up, what are we looking at? What are going to be our main pillars to be able to enable the digital economy? We are looking at what we call a progressive regulation of technology. We are looking at how can we be able to enhance digital literacy and skills. How can we be able to build the physical infrastructure to be able to drive the digital economy, Uganda's digital economy. And then when it comes to governance structures, how are we taking on the digital government structures? And all this we are going to be able to see what we portray the country to be in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, despite the fact that right now we have rapidly changing technologies that are happening. Right now we have our panelists who will be joining us during this panel discussion, the theme day. Allow me to give the floor to Irene, who is going to introduce herself. Irene?
Hello everyone, my name is Irene Esther, and I'm the Head of Business Growth and PR at Diwala. And at Diwala, we leverage blockchain technology and decentralized identity standards to provide a platform that enables the issuance and verification of credentials. These credentials could be proof of training, proof of education, a business license for a business, proof of work experience, any important information you can think of that can create a business or an individual's identity or digital skill ID. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Irene. That is quite a rich profile that I can see when it comes to technology. Yeah. Right now also we have Michael Nyitegeka, who is a renowned ICT expert, who is also joining us live on Zoom. And I would like to mention that during this live panel discussion is that we are embracing technologies to show the power of innovation. During this COVID time, also note that we are keeping also a social distance of approximately 4 to 6 meters, feet, which shows that that's why we are not putting on our masks, such that you can also be able to know who we are able to talk to. So let me give the opportunity to Michael, who is joining us on Zoom. Michael? Yes. No. Yeah. welcome. As Michael is coming on online, Michael, could you please just give us a brief introduction? So as can you hear? Uganda. Oh, yes. For that, sorry. Since we're still trying to get Michael on the call, let's just connect to Rugunda, who is going to give us at least a brief introduction about themselves. Rugunda, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Rugunda. It's just interesting when you begin speaking about the issue of blockchain technologies. We are seeing a lot of people preaching the gospel of blockchain. Just a quick one, could you please tell us what is Uganda's intake right now when it comes to the adoption of blockchain technologies?
Sorry, did you say intent or intake?
The intake of Uganda's intake when it comes to adopting blockchain technology.
Okay, so at an adoption level, the governance structure in order to support adoption is in place.
Can I know who
Meaning
is
there
online?
is a
Excuse
legal
me.
regime that is favorable.
Who is online?
Particularly, there's the Financial Intelligence Authority is mandated in order by law to register businesses that involve in what are known as virtual assets, so virtual asset service providers. That is one component. The central bank currently has in place what is known as a blockchain working group, which is particularly looking at how this technology can support central banks and the entire banking industry. There's the national blockchain strategy, which is available online, that was put together by Ministry of ICT. So at a framework level, the support is extensive. Then there's also a lot of activity in the community, meaning software developers, meaning entrepreneurs, meaning young people who are testing out blockchain and the value that it can bring in industry. And so we're seeing blockchain applications being developed in fintech, in agriculture, in education, just like our sister from this on the panel right now, Irene, is involved with. So there's development that is happening in various sectors. So therefore, I've spoken both at a policy level and I've also spoken at an industry level. And I hope that gives a good summary of as a response to your question on the intake of blockchain technology.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting summary, because when you look at the growing technologies, we'll find that blockchain is being adopted by various countries. And Uganda also, you find that there are quite a number of people who are beginning to set up this drive. I know there was one time a think tank that was created, the presidential think tank on blockchain. I think we shall be hearing more about that regarding to that. Let me get to Irene. Irene, briefly tell us, how do you envision Uganda to be in the next 5 years when it comes to the digital space?
Well, first of all, I believe Uganda will be a leader in the technology space and the digital economy space. And why do I say that? I'm so amazed by the number of entrepreneurs, digital entrepreneurs that are sprouting up every other day. And we as Uganda have an advantage. First of all, majority of our population is quite young. That means they're very technically skilled and very literate. So that in itself is a big advantage that the government and the private sector can leverage on to build and promote digital economies and digital transformation. Of course, as we continue to build the gap and bridge the gap between those that are illiterate, who are, you know, a big number, as well as this young population that is very technically skilled. And when I now come to speak to the space of digital identities, I do know that we have come a long way, first of all, for many of us Ugandans to have an identity. And I believe there is a plan to also digitize these identities. And I'm very passionate about digital identities because I believe when each and every person, each and every business has a digital identity, it will open up so many opportunities for them, both internationally as well as nationally. Someone will not have to worry about proving who they are, what they have done, what they can do, because they'll be able to access that information digitally. And 5 years from now, I believe that Uganda will hopefully have an EID that can enable we nationals to access those opportunities and that investment. So that's where I believe Uganda is going.
Yeah, when you bring up a very pertinent point of the Uganda's digital identity. Yeah. We have seen the national ID as one of the projects that Uganda has embarked on, and I think every Ugandan has now a national ID. Do you think that just the national ID as a project of its own has a strong relationship to the digital identity drive that Uganda is heading towards?
Definitely, I think it does, and the fact that we have managed to get at least majority of the Ugandans having that ID is a great step. Now, what we need to do is to digitize that ID. We have at least the infrastructure, there's sensitization that has gone around that, you know what, you need an ID. So that sensitization is going around. Now, when we digitize that, it will even open up so many other opportunities. So I feel and I believe the fact that we, as many Ugandans, have these IDs is a great step forward towards digitizing them. And once we digitize them, more people will be able to access that digital economy. Because one of the many aspects that is important in this digital economy is not just software and e-commerce and hardware, but it's also human capital. People like you and I, entrepreneurs that own businesses, and these people and entrepreneurs need that identity. In this case, they'll need a digital ID to be able to open up those opportunities to them. So I believe once we are able to all identify ourselves digitally, we're also able to access more opportunities that the digital economy provides.
Yeah, that is really great. I can see that there is a lot of hanging fruits that are coming in, especially when it comes to Uganda's digital identity. Yeah. Let me just simply get back very fast to Rugunda, who is joining us live on Zoom. Could you please just simply tell us about what does Uganda's digital future look like?
Yes, I would like to start by reiterating what Irene said, and I fully agree with the views that she has shared. Uganda's digital future is bright. It's actually very bright. And we happen to have a series of ingredients that will enable for this brightness to be realized. And Irene talked about young people, a young population. The young population is such a critical ingredient because these are both, they are consumer drivers, meaning they will be purchasing these goods and services. Not only are they young, but they're also growing up in a tech-savvy environment. So that makes them, that shortens the curve in terms of understanding these services. And many of them are entrepreneurs themselves and young business people. So the fact that there's a young population is one critical ingredient that it's a bright future. The fact that we are seeing our internet prices dropping. Internet prices have been high, but they're continuing to drop significantly. And with continued lowering of internet prices, there is increased adaptability. So more people are able to take on internet services, develop applications on them, And that is the key infrastructure that requires to be in place in order for the digital economy to thrive. Thirdly, I can also add that we are in a nascent ecosystem, and a nascent ecosystem that has primarily been producing raw materials. And therefore, there's unique opportunity for adders of value, meaning value addition through digital means, to be applied to these raw materials in order to increase their value. This is so important because it highlights the great landscape of opportunity that is available in the digital economy. So therefore, in conclusion, I share fully what Irene has said. The digital economy, the future of the digital economy is bright for our country, and it's really us to harness it and to grab it and make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response. We've seen a lot of young innovators coming up, and during this Innovation Week, we have seen the youngest innovator participating in the Innovation Awards, which is Innovation Awards, a 9-year-old called by the names of Mpaji Ann, and she came up with a small digital platform whereby one can be able to follow the curriculum or do a self-study about at home. So when you begin to see that innovators as young as 9 years are beginning to join this innovation space, do you think the children have a paramount role to play in regarding to the future of the digital innovations in the country? Irene, what do you have to say about this?
Definitely, they do have a role to play. And when I interact with a lot of parents, you'll hear parents telling you that my children are teaching me how to use WhatsApp. My children are teaching me how to use Zoom. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I had to help my dad get onto Zoom. I literally taught him how to use Zoom. So we see that the education and sensitization, it's not just going to be us as the private sector or the government or the schools that are sensitizing people about these different tools and technologies, but these young children that actually understand these technologies much faster than we do are going to play a big role to teach us. So I would not even just consider them as little children, but I consider them as important actors towards pushing us to digital transformation here.
Great. That is interesting, because when it comes to the issues of children, my passion for children and innovation, it's like it gets sparked up, and I see that there is at least a future when it comes to children. I'd like to also introduce Michael Nyitegeka, who has also joined us on Zoom. Michael, do you mind giving us an introduction about yourself, and then also how do you envision Uganda's digital future? Michael? Michael? I think Michael is still having some challenges trying to connect, but also I'd like to introduce our panelists from the Innovation Village. Innovation Village has been driving a lot of innovations within in Uganda, and we have Samantha on Zoom. Samantha, please.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be part of this event. I'm Samantha Nyunsaba, and I work at the Innovation Village, and we support entrepreneurs that are solving the most critical challenges in our community, leveraging technology, and we work with partners to tap into these opportunities to scale the solutions and to create impact in the community. May I just ask, was there a question that was directed? Could you iterate that if it was?
Yes, Samantha, the question that I have for you this morning is how do you envision Uganda's digital future in the next 5 years?
That's a very good question. And given the fact that, one, we're a very young population, and two, a lot of our areas are still unconnected. So there is a vast opportunity for us to leverage technology to reach the less connected areas. And that, of course, would drive, one, job creation and economic recovery. I do believe that steps are being taken for us to reach that impact in the next 5 years, but there is a greater need for us to tie collaboration of different ecosystem players for us to enhance that, us identifying the role each of us needs to play wherever we're at, if it's corporates, if it's developmental agencies, if it's government, if it's private institutions, how do we come together to leverage the opportunity to tap into in the next 5 years?
Okay, that's really great, because there are quite a number of opportunities that Uganda can be able to hold on to, such that they can be able to tap into the global digital drive. And these opportunities, there is an information gap whereby we find that innovations are not scaled across. Let me just get back to Samantha. Samantha, the innovation village, I still don't understand the concept of the innovation village, and when it comes to reaching out to the potential innovators, what is the innovation village doing to be able to build the digital economy in the far remote areas whereby they have inaccessibility in terms of accessing the digital divide? Where is the digital divide, and what is the innovation village doing to be able to bridge this digital divide?
That's a good question. One, I would say that the Innovation Village was established understanding that we have what we call a broken ecosystem. Because when you look at our neighboring countries, Kenya, even Rwanda, right, is that they're far ahead of the digital and innovation space more than us. And it's not just one issue, it's a number of issues. So as the Innovation Village, we're set up trying to address the various issues in terms of community, building a presence of tech entrepreneurs to collaborate with each other, Future Lab, working with corporates to leverage existing solutions to tackle specific challenges. The 97 Fund, which is bringing together capital to invest in startups. So again, tapping into the opportunity that the different problems, tap into the opportunity and to support the problems that are there. And of course, then the regional presence, in that we understand that the issue is not just in Kampala, it's in Gulu, it's in Jinja, it's in Mbarara. So I would say that the most key is working with different stakeholders in addressing the challenges using technology solutions and working to scale them.
Yeah,
I hope that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samantha. As we see that the digital divide is slowly narrowing, there's a lot of accessibility to mobile devices, there's accessibility to the internet. We're beginning to have an internet penetration rate of approximately 75% where of Ugandans having access to the internet through their mobile phones. And we have seen technology transitioning from the 3G, 4G, and there are some basic devices which use edge internet. But now with the growth of 4G, we're seeing technology and the digital device slowly narrowing. A lot of services are going digital, and one can be able to buy their bus tickets. Because I'll give an example. One of the startups in that has exhibited here at Kololo called Kasaiba, one can be able to buy bus tickets for their events right on their phone. That's an example of the transition of the digital economy. We have Michael, who has joined us from Refactory. Michael, welcome to this digital economy live panel on projecting what Uganda's digital future is. Michael, kindly introduce yourself such that the audience can be able to know who you are, and then you can briefly give us a description of what you think Uganda will be able to be like in the next 5 years. Michael.
Thank you, Daniel and the host. A pleasure being part of this panel. Apologies for joining a little bit later. Refactory is one of the initiatives that I'm currently involved in. And our primary focus is to address the skills gap that does exist in the digital ecosystem. And the reason why we are having this is that there is a big issue. If companies are going to grow, they will need people. If we're going to grow the entire ecosystem, we must have the right kind of talent that has the capacity to scale. And so Refactory came in to bridge the gap between university and the world of work. And that's where we place ourselves. And we look for anybody who has a level of interest and passion and is interested in IT or specifically software development. We have now started progressing to looking at other verticals and working with the friends of mine, Kwame and Noah, around the Blockchain Association. And really our intention is also to bring on board programs like blockchain, data science, and a number of other initiatives. Now, the key thing is to focus on skill, that when you hire somebody, this person has the capacity to deliver what you're looking for. That's number one. Number two is that, so if I look at 5 years from now, what are we going to look like? I think we have to be very intentional. We cannot claim that these things are going to come to us. No, we are going to work hard. We're going to make sure that we are there. And if we work hard, we will definitely be able to reap the benefits that come with the digital enhancement, digital capabilities. We'll have unicorns in Uganda that are able to raise $1 billion in terms of revenue. So the future is bright. But you see, it is not a guaranteed. It's not that you're going to find it on your plate given to you. It's going to be hard work. And so working with partners like the Innovation Village, working with the Blockchain Association, FitSpa, and all these other things, it has to be a collective effort if you're going to raise and appreciate the real value that comes with the digital economy. And I hope that makes sense, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. That makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the uptake of technology in Uganda right now. Just to get back on what is happening at Kololo right now, about one of the innovations I'll mention about, it's called Kawallet, whereby students can be able to have their parents send pocket money without one necessarily having a mobile money account. So meaning that the current Ugandan policy does not allow students to have mobile phones in their hands at school. So in case the student is in a boarding school, how can the parent remit money? So this Kawallet innovation is one that leverages on digital currencies or fintech to be able to disrupt the education system when it comes to sending finances. Let me just simply get back to Rugunda. We've been speaking about the fourth industrial revolution and modes of payment. And they say that it's said to be it's going to completely transform the way we transact businesses. And also, how can we be able to share value when it comes to the way we transact? Could this be true that the fourth industrial revolution is going to be a game changer? And then, what is the impact of this 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, and how is it going to be able to affect some of our systems, how some of our transactions that are coming in? Rugunda?
Thank you. So I think to give some context on fourth industrial revolution, it's important to contextually appreciate what it is. And oftentimes there is a reference to the previous industrial revolutions, and I'll just summarize it in the interest of time. The first industrial revolution, primarily when steam engines came into existence, and this transformed Europe. This is what created England and Europe to be global superpowers. The second industrial revolution was when electricity was created, and then the light bulb and James Watt, and lit up the world, literally and metaphorically. The third, which is the infrastructure for the fourth, happened over the last 30 years, or in our own lifetime, when we saw electronic communication, of which the most important highlight was the internet. Now, the internet is so important because it makes knowledge ubiquitous. It spreads knowledge and enables people to access information. Previously, the holder of information was the controller of power. But what the internet has enabled is for information to be massively available to everyone anywhere around the world at any time. In other words, me sitting in Kampala, in Ntinda, in Boise, in Weyogerere, I'll have the exact same information as someone sitting in San Francisco, in Paris, in Tokyo, in London. Therefore, because of this point of access to information, knowledge has now been made publicly and abundantly available. That is the foundation layer. When you have that foundation layer of knowledge in place, then you can do a myriad of other things on top. So that is the third industrial revolution. Among these things that have been built on top of the internet are a series of technologies that are now being called the fourth industrial revolution. And it's the convergence of these technologies, whether there's a series of them. There's artificial intelligence, there's blockchain, there's Internet of Things, and many others. So the convergence of these technologies is creating a new world. And this new world is what we are calling the fourth industrial revolution. And it opens up a myriad of opportunities. You were just mentioning right now about the student using digital technology, digital currencies to disrupt education. You were speaking a few minutes ago about a 9-year-old young lady who was the youngest innovator being displayed this week. So you can see the technologies that they're referring to and that they're using are convergence. So we see the fourth industrial revolution as unleashing a myriad of opportunities, enabling for creation, storage, transaction of value, of new type of value. And this is going to happen in all sectors, whether it is agriculture, which is the backbone of our economy, where we are seeing smart agriculture now happening, whether it is the way people plant, whether it is the way farmers access information about weather patterns, about better farming methods, and so on, whether it is in the education sector, whether it is in trade. So we are seeing the impact of these technologies beginning in various sectors of our economy. And mind you, this is just the beginning. We are soon going to see the impact of artificial intelligence. We're going to soon see new types of jobs being created. The people that Michael Nitejeka was talking about at Refactory that are being trained, they are being given foundation skills in order to prepare them for this new type of jobs and this new type of work. So we're seeing a whole new world that is emerging as a result of the fourth industrial revolution. And therefore, in conclusion, in terms of the question that you raised, Uganda currently has in place a national blockchain task force on the fourth industrial revolution. I happen to be a part of it, and so does Michael. And this national task force on the fourth industrial revolution has actually put together a proposed strategy in which Uganda can embrace the opportunity that the fourth industrial revolution enables, while taking into consideration important risks like challenges of connectivity, challenges of digital divide, and so on. And this strategy is publicly available, and it's being proposed to Cabinet and the government of Uganda in order to adopt, such that Ugandans can take advantage of what the fourth industrial revolution enables. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rugunda, for that. When you begin to speak about transactions, when you begin to speak about blockchain technologies, where does the country position itself regarding to this? Right now, we have we know that we have various key players that play an important role in the regulation of fiscal policy and fintech in the country. Today, I'm happy to say that we have Jacinta Anyange from Bank of Uganda. Let me welcome her, and I'll welcome Jacinta. You mind introducing yourself further?
Well, thank you very much. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Absolutely.
Yes. My name is Jacinta Anyange. I just need to correct the pronunciation of that name. And I'm a corporate lawyer with over 15 years experience. in the financial sector regulation with 11 years currently as in-house counsel at the Central Bank of Uganda. And my career focus has always been on contract negotiation, drafting of regulatory strategy that identifies and addresses gaps in the financial sector, policy development, financial sector law drafting, guidelines and provision of legal and regulatory advice in the financial sector. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sorry for that pronunciation. Actually, I come from the east. Probably pronouncing those names from the north could be a little bit challenging, but I'll take you by the names of Jacinta. Jacinta, we very well know that the key component of the digital economy is money. And what is the future of money from your perspective? And what is Bank of Uganda trying to do towards changing the way we handle our money? Jacinta?
Thank you very much. As regards the future of money, I think we have already seen what is happening all over the world. We are seeing the development of and then the implementation of the central bank digital currencies happening all over. We've seen it in the Caribbean. We are also seeing it happening right now in West Africa. Nigeria has gone far with it. I just want to say that we currently have a working group that we are doing some groundwork to see the viability of how we can issue a central bank digital currency. Mm-hmm. This hasn't yet come out publicly. We are still doing underground work as regards that issue. So I'm sure when we are done, this will come out and we shall involve a number of stakeholders, but we are doing something about it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great that you're doing something about it, because I wouldn't be very comfortable to see Uganda being left behind in this digital trend. And in Africa, Uganda has been so much at the front of a lot of innovations. Personally, I joined the innovation space way back. That was in the year 2004, 2005. By the time, the uptake of innovation was slowly changing. Mobile money transactions coming in, computers were beginning to take shape, and everything. But if you're to compare that position and the current situation of the country, you find that there is a lot that has changed. Let me just give the floor back to Samantha. Samantha, Uganda has tried to stimulate innovation in many ways, both in the private sector and even in the public sector. We, however, get far behind the likes of countries like Kenya and Nigeria. What are we missing in this innovation drive? And how can we be able to improve this? Samantha.
Yeah, so one of the things I mentioned before was collaboration. Is the collaboration on our ecosystem is still lacking, and identifying innovation and technology as a gateway to solve particular.
I think there is a bit of a challenge there, but we shall be able to get back to Samantha at one point. Meanwhile, I have my panelist here, Irene Mutuzo. Irene, we identify that
recording in progress.
Critical element also is identifying innovation for shared value, and that means that how can we take the idea of shared value in advancing sustainable development without losing profitability. And part of that innovation is also tied to technology and advancing the digital economy. So we find that most organizations are still in the traditional sense of CSR and social responsibility, and yet there's the principle of shared value, which is actually creating economic value by addressing needs and challenges. So shooting two birds with one stone, but of course that mindset shift is something that is critical for us in the ecosystem to understand how we can tap into shared value, tap into collaboration to advance the digital economy.
Thank you very much for that. I think a lot of collaboration is needed here. Very quickly, let me get to Irene. Irene, you mentioned something about getting our digital identities for every Ugandan. Is it the government's role? What do you think the government can do? But we are touching a very critical field of digital identity. Does the private sector have a pertinent role that it can be able to do in this drive of building Uganda's digital identity?
Definitely, I believe all parties have a role to play, the private sector as well as the government sector. And the only way we can move forward is if those parties work together. So like Samantha said, we need to collaborate to be able to move forward. And to further elaborate, I just want to add on a couple of things that my fellow panelists said. Number one, inclusivity. If we are to enable digital IDs to be able to be accessed by anyone and everyone, as we build our systems, as we build our platforms, they need to be inclusive. And just to give an example of what we as Diwala have done, is that we have understood and come to learn in our work that not everyone has a smartphone. So we have enabled even the person who does not have a smartphone to be able to digitally receive their certificate or credential, share it for verification and store it. So that's one aspect of inclusivity. So inclusivity is also key to being able to open up this digital ID space to each one and everyone. Then the second thing that I would like to elaborate on is what Michael said about skilling. Yes, we have a young population that is tech literate, that is moving things very fast, but we also have this population that probably has no idea about how to go around their smartphone. They don't understand the value of digital technologies. When you tell them about digital technologies, there's a sense of distrust because they don't understand the value. And if we are building, for example, the digital ID to cater to each and every Ugandan, this gap needs to be enclosed. This gap needs to be bridged. And it takes both the private sector, for example, what Refactory is doing. It takes the government sector, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Science and Innovation, all of us together. What programs can we create towards skilling not just a few people but the entire economy? Then lastly, Kwame talked about the internet, that yes, the internet penetration has increased, yes, the prices have gone lower, but can they be lower? Yes, they can be lower. And when I sit and envision Uganda 10 years from now or 5 years from now, I envision myself walking into Kisoro district where I come from and not having to pay for internet, simply pulling out my gadget and being able to access the Wi-Fi. I believe internet penetration and internet affordability will also be a big catalyzer towards the implementation and adoption of digital identities.
Thank you very much, Irene, for that. I picked just a couple of points. One is inclusiveness and an enabling environment for innovations. If we are to look at those two things, there's going to be a need for a drive towards scaling the population to be able to build various innovations. We know that at Refactory, there is something interesting that they're doing. Michael, just to get you on this, what are some of these digital skills? What role does the digital skills play in setting up the path to a fully realized digital economy? Is there any gap that we are having in this skilling? And then how can we be able to ensure that the government and the private sector can be able to solve these gaps? Michael?
Thank you, Daniel. So the three things that you raised there. How critical is this in terms of the digital economy? I think it is the heart of it. My brother Kwame will share with you that the number of companies that attempt to come into this country, and the first thing they ask you, how easy is it to find talent? And so if you don't have talent, or if you don't have a talent strategy, it means that the cost of doing business in your country is going to be extremely expensive. And because of that, then you cease to be very attractive. And I guess that's why you see quite a number of entities are willing to let's say set up in Nigeria or in Kenya, because it's very easy to find talent that is ready. So one of the things we're really trying to address is how do we get people industry ready? Now, of course, we're in an environment where people focus so largely on qualification. So if you get a degree, if you have a diploma, yes, that's very good. But we've come to a point where industry doesn't really care about what qualifications you have. And so at Refactory, we take on anybody that has an interest. We take on high school students, we take on guys who have finished senior 4. And guess what? There's no massive difference between the guys who have studied IT and software engineering at university and the guys who stopped at senior 6. Over the last 3 years, we've trained over 320, close to 320 young people. Of those, we have about 83, about 83% who are either doing their own business or who are in gainful employment. So, and here's another interesting thing. We are beginning to see inquiries coming in from other parts of the continent asking us if we can assure them that we can give them talent on a consistent basis and continuous. So the demand for talent is way bigger than a Ugandan aspect. It is an African aspect. I think the World Bank report that was looking at sub-Saharan Africa was saying close to 300 million jobs in Africa are going to be digitized in one way or the other. And the need for training is massive. I think they're looking at close to over $2 billion in terms of the value for training opportunities. So what we're dealing with is partnering. Now, how do we work with government, private sector, and all the other players? The first thing is acceptability. And I can tell you from a private sector perspective, I think that we are closing. We've proved the concept. We've had a number of companies hire our graduates, or people have gone through our program, and they've realized that there is value for them. So from a private sector, massive endorsement. From a government sector side, it's still work in progress, because we don't give an academic qualification. Our award is not an academic qualification. Our award is primarily a skill qualification. So we're trying to work with DIT, the Directorate of Industrial Training, to get this program accredited. But the challenge you have with entities like DIT is that they don't have the frameworks for, let's say, software engineering as a practice. They have the low-end levels. But our intention is really to support them, and where possible, make sure that we have that level of credibility of working with them. So with that, Daniel, what I can say is that when you address the issue of skill, you begin to attract certain quality of work into your market, and that quality of work then drives your local digital economy. That's how it works. When you have a company that receives $10 million or $1 million investment, that company's skill requirement is going to fundamentally change in 2 years. And you have to make sure that you're ready to provide them that talent without getting them to go to India or that way. So that's what I can say for now, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Michael. We are almost coming to the end of this, but I'll just simply give you a few highlights. First and foremost, we've seen that COVID has really affected Uganda's digital economy, or Uganda's economy generally. And we have seen a growth or uptake in ICT and digital innovations all over the country. For each of us, for each of the panelists here, my question to each of you is, where would you want to target the next investment in the next 5 years? And what outcomes would you expect? I'll start right with me in the studio. Irene.
For me, if I had the powers, I'm very passionate about bridging that gap, because I believe that the digital technologies that we're building. I believe that digital economy should be accessible to each and everyone. So where I would first of all put that investment is to bridge that gap through skilling programs, through education programs, bringing in both the private sector as well as the government sector to see to it that, you know, the young population and the other population, they're at the same level. They're starting to understand the value of digital technologies and the digital economy, because I believe that is, I could say, that's the game changer. Once we understand the value, once we have the skills, once we have the knowledge, when it comes to sensitization, it won't be so hard to tell someone that, look, your ID can be digital. You know, when it comes to people trying to play around with gadgets, it may not be as hard because people have that understanding, people have that value. So that's where I'll put my investment. Then I'll definitely also look into investing in the internet, because the internet does also play a role in enabling the digital economy.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's turn over to Jacinta. Jacinta, what would you want to be your next investment in the next 5 years? Jacinta?
Thank you very much. As a regulator and somebody who is interested in the development of the financial sector and to also ensure that the economy is digitalized, I would look at the national switch. That is a fundamental issue right now in the sector. When we have a national switch, it means everybody will plug in. And that means even the cost will come down, because there will be a minimal cost. There will be no need of the current challenges we are having regarding interoperability. You need all these networks and all these systems to be interrelated and looked in just one place. So that would be my target. And when that is accomplished, there has to be massive sensitization of the consumers and the members of the public of the benefits. So I think that is briefly what I would desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that switch is a key thing that can be able to accelerate the innovation drive. Let's hear from Samantha. Samantha, where would you want to put your money? Where would you want the investment to be?
I'll iterate one of the things that also Michael talked about, skilling and affordability. We obviously have a huge gap in digital skills, and that is for both basic and advanced skills. That would be one. The second one would be in deliberately supporting startups and innovation, because we have seen a huge number of tech startups pushing innovation in the digital space and really disrupting traditional businesses. And then, of course, import substitution, because we have a lot of talent in Uganda and a lot of makers and artisans. So import substitution, how can we leverage the opportunities of our entrepreneurs instead of importing within? So digital skilling, supporting startups and innovations, and then import substitution.
Thank you very much. Let me just get to Rugunda. Rugunda, I know you're so much passionate about blockchain. I don't want to guess what your next investment would be, but I'd just like to pose the question to you. Where would you want the next investment to be?
Michael, in blockchain. Okay, I would focus on three things. The first is infrastructure. And infrastructure, that means electricity, connectivity, national switch, as Jacinta was mentioning. So infrastructure is key. The second is access. Access is very important. Digital literacy, skilling, affordability, things like that. Import substitution, cybersecurity. And then the third and critically important is ecosystem development. And here, the point that was just being made about startups being supported, access to capital, access to mentorship, access for their digital product and services. So those are the three things I would focus on: infrastructure, access, and then ecosystem development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor lastly to Michael, who can be able to tell us what level or what investments he would want for the country. Michael?
I would copy and paste everything else that has been said. I think everything has been said, if I could put it that way. The critical stuff has already been raised. And so for me, I think one of the areas that I would invest in as a last point is digital transformation leadership, because you can have good infrastructure, you can have good systems, you can have everything in, but if leadership is not aligned, it will be a struggle. So it is important that we get our local government leaders understand how technology can contribute and for them to get demand. So in a nutshell, I would say demand activation, because the reason why you find somebody that has a school app and is only serving 20 schools is just because the leadership in most of the schools haven't fully appreciated the possibility and the potential of that technology. So that for me is another area that I would invest in and is extremely critical. And everything else that has been said by my fellow panelists. But it's been a pleasure being part of this, and I hope we can move from the conversation to action and make sure everybody is aligned. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, all our respective panelists. I'll just like to highlight what the future of the digital economy is. We have a special, one thing that has been set special for science, technology, and innovation is the breakdown of the digital economies, of the economies by the Ministry of STI. And would like to appreciate the fact that our government set up a scientific coordination place for all respective innovations, and the digital economy is one of them, which is going to be run directly under the Secretariat of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation Office of the President, which is aimed at creating an enabling environment and a coordination center for innovation, science and technologies. And the office is open, and this is the first time that I'm seeing a drastic drive, a drastic campaign of technology. And one thing is that I would like to thank our President, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for being the front, on the front line for driving innovation, science and technology in the country. What can't we do without technology? Uganda has for long been known as a hub, but a lot of technical expertise have been leaving the country, and this is the time to advocate that let's come back and build Uganda's digital economy. Let's come back and build Uganda's science and technology space. And with that, I would like to thank our media team who has been working tirelessly with this, and also the Office of the President and the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation for making this happen. All of you are all welcome, and thank you very much once again.
The program lineup on UBC.
Brought to you by Roofings, Strength of a Nation.